welcome to Conversations Plus, a PFLAG Broomfield Pride video series. My name is Sasha Davis, my pronouns are she, her, and I'm the outreach coordinator for PFLAG Broomfield. I will be your host as we meet some members and allies of the LGBTQIA+ community and learn some stuff along the way. Today we're talking about mental health in the LGBTQIA+ community, what we're facing, and what resources there are for us. I was joined by members of Broomfield Public Health, Envision U, and Rise Above Colorado for a conversation on the stats, the realities, and the solutions. Come listen in. Good morning, and thank you all so much for joining me today to talk about health and mental health and wellness in the LGBTQIA+ community. We really appreciate you taking time out of your day to help us learn. So let's get started. One of the things that our community faces often is a lack of health and mental health services that are geared towards our particular needs, or even just accessing care because of biases from providers. Will you talk a little bit about the needs of the LGBTQIA+ community from a health perspective, Donovan?
Absolutely. Hey folks, my name is Donovan Smith. I use he, him pronouns. I currently serve as a program manager here at Envision U. So when we talk about the needs of the queer community from a health perspective, first I want to talk about the stats, dive into those, and then talk a little bit about the risk factors that lead to poor mental health outcomes, the problems that we see among providers, and then touching on a bit of intersectionality. So when we look at the statistics of mental health among the queer community, we see that 18% of LGBTQ+ adults have a substance use disorder, compared to 8% of the general population. That data comes from SAMHSA 2020, so it's fairly recent. 55% of LGBTQ+ Coloradans are diagnosed with depression and 50% with an anxiety disorder, as compared to 17.4 and 17.7 respectively among the general population. We know that queer youth in Colorado have higher rates of suicidal thinking and suicide attempts, with 40% of transgender youth experiencing suicidal thinking and 35% attempting suicide. These numbers are a lot larger than they should be. We want to see 0%, and what we see is this huge disparity among transgender youth when we talk about suicide. And then 41% of transgender Coloradan adults consider suicide, as compared to 6% of the general population. That data comes out of One Colorado Education Fund from 2019. So again, this data is fairly recent and relevant. And without intervention, these disparities continue to get worse over time. So when we look at risk factors for the LGBTQ+ community, when we're talking about suicide, substance use, mental health, and mental illness, we see higher rates of homelessness and unemployment among the queer community. We know that when we look at adverse childhood experiences, ACEs, these are things like trauma in early life that contribute to mental health outcomes that are poor and less than ideal. We know that LGBTQ+ folks usually show 4 or more ACEs, whereas heterosexual folks, the general population, have 1 to 4 ACEs. And the more ACEs that someone carries, the more likely they are to experience those negative and discouraging mental health outcomes. And then we also know that the queer community and LGBTQ+ folks face things like religious trauma at a higher rate and trauma in general at a higher rate. I know that that was my story, so I can definitely speak to that. And then second to last, we know that there's a lack of providers who understand the unique needs of the LGBTQ+ community. One assessment found that there are 95 LGBTQ+ friendly, whatever that means, providers in Colorado, and only 35 of those are behavioral health providers. And with there being more than 200,000 LGBTQ+ Coloradans, I'm really curious how 35 behavioral health providers can serve 200,000 people. And the fact of the matter is they can't. And even if there were enough behavioral health providers, we know that LGBTQ+ folks, 60% of them, walk into a healthcare space and have a bad experience. That's due to homophobia, transphobia, feeling unsafe, and they don't want to return to a healthcare space, let alone a behavioral healthcare space. So we see this barrier to care in just being LGBTQ+. And then lastly, when we talk about the mental health experiences of the queer community, it's really important to name that folks who are multiply marginalized, who have identities outside of an LGBTQ+ identity, which is already so oppressed, such as race, ethnicity, class, ability, and gender. When you intersect that with the queer identity, we actually see more damaging mental health outcomes. We see higher rates of suicide and homelessness, higher rates of substance use. So that's the queer community from a health perspective when we talk about mental health and substance use.
Thank you so much, Donovan. So my next question is specifically regarding LGBTQIA plus youth. So many of our youth face discrimination at home and at school. Since these are risk factors for substance abuse, Hayden, could you tell us some more about how substance abuse and addiction impacts LGBTQIA plus youth?
Yes, absolutely. Hi, I'm Hayden. I use they, them pronouns, and I'm a program coordinator at Envision U. So as Donovan mentioned, the mental health outcomes for LGBTQ plus youth are very starkly upsetting. Higher rates of suicide, higher rates of self-harm, anxiety, depression, the list goes on and on. So let me talk a little bit about the risk factors here. Like you mentioned, youth report that they are physically threatened at higher rates when they identify as LGBTQ. 86% of LGBTQ youth said that recent politics have negatively impacted their well-being. Transgender and non-binary youth who have reported having their pronouns respected, however, by all or most people in their lives, attempted suicide at half the rate of those who did not have their pronouns respected. So when we're looking at these risk factors, we note that support around the LGBTQ plus identity leads to less substance use, leads to less anxiety, leads to less depression. And we know also that things like conversion therapy, homelessness, running away are also risk factors for substance use and abuse.
Oops. Now I'm not muted. Thank you so much, Hayden. So now that we've talked a little bit about the struggle, let's talk about solutions. Tracy, Ann, what kind of services are available locally in Broomfield, Tracy, and in the surrounding areas?
Yeah, so I'm Tracy. I use she, her pronouns, and I'm the Community Health Improvement Coordinator for Broomfield Public Health. Broomfield's a really small county, so when we talk about our resources, they typically cross over into surrounding areas like Boulder and Westminster. We have two primary organizations that support mental health and substance use in the community. So Community Reach Center, also called CRC, and Mental Health Partners, also called MHP. And there's a lot of other private providers. So both CRC and MHP have offices that are in Broomfield and offer outpatient clinical services and telehealth appointments for anyone that needs help. In addition to that, both CRC and MHP have 24/7 behavioral health crisis centers or urgent cares that are offered. One is located in Boulder and one is located in Westminster. You can find the addresses and contact information posted on the broomfield.org/MH resources. And then in addition to crisis services, the COVID-19 pandemic led to the creation of a warm line. So the Colorado Spirit program is run by MHP, and it's a regional resource for anyone in need of additional support that's not necessarily considered a crisis line. So it allows you to leave a voicemail and clinical staff returns your call within a day. They can assist you with up to 6 counseling sessions at no cost, or they can help you to coordinate scheduling a clinical appointment if you have difficulty finding a provider near you. Anyone that calls and that has non-related or non-COVID related needs can get connected to a Broomfield community health worker. And these are knowledgeable members of our community whose focus is to reduce stigma, serve as cultural liaisons, and really help navigating available resources for both behavioral and physical health, along with housing, food, and other benefits that someone might need. Broomfield is really lucky. We have a strong youth substance and mental health prevention coalition called Communities That Care, and that actually runs right through the Broomfield Public Health Department. One of the most important components of that is the engagement with young people to be seen and heard as the experts in their life and to help guide community prevention efforts. They partner heavily with our local school districts and support school-based therapists, both of which MHP and CRC have within the 2 main school districts, which is Boulder Valley and Adams 12. And in a few minutes, I'm going to turn it over to Ben, who's going to talk about more of their efforts with Rise Above. But before that, I'm going to be turning it over to Anne with Envision U. I did want to mention 2 clinical organizations that are located in Broomfield that focus on this population. The first is called YouthSeen. This is a Broomfield LGBTQ plus support that offers clinical mental health counseling, gender affirming support, and family counseling. And they additionally have a peer mentoring support network. They're a great resource in our community, especially for youth, and they serve the surrounding area. And then the second resource that's a clinical support is called Queer Asterisk, and they're a Colorado nonprofit organization that provides queer-informed counseling services, educational trainings, community programs, and they have multiple locations, the closest being Boulder, and then they have Longmont, Denver, and also Fort Collins. And so, Anne, I will turn it over to you.
Amazing. My name is Anne Bennett. I use she, her pronouns, and I am a program coordinator at Envision U. And I just wanted to mention a couple. We're going to provide a link at the end of this where we have tons of resources that we've compiled together that are free to access for anyone with the link. I just wanted to mention a couple. So for national general LGBTQ plus mental health resources, we have the Trevor Project, which provides support for LGBTQ youth under 25. It's a 24-hour phone line, chatting, texting, services with counselors, and they also offer peer-to-peer support through Trevor Space. And then YouthSeen is another one that's great. It's dedicated to supporting LGBTQ plus QTPOC communities. And then we've got SAGE National LGBTQ Elder Hotline. So it's a talk line for LGBTQ plus elders. They can connect with each other, can create community, which is really amazing. And then Colorado-based ones, I'll just list out 3. We've got the Trans Lifeline. So it's an all transgender operated hotline that offers direct emotional and financial support for transgender people in crisis. And then we've got One Colorado, which is a massive directory on mental health providers serving the LGBTQ plus community. And then the Center on Colfax. And they are basically, their mission is to engage, empower, and enrich the LGBTQ plus community of Colorado. And then I'll just mention a couple of other more specific ones. So for Black mental health resources nationally, we have the National Queer and Trans Therapist of Color Network. So you basically can access this directory at any time and access those. And then I also wanted to highlight in Colorado, we have Fortaleza Familiar, which is dedicated to the wellness of Indigenous and Latinx LGBTQ plus Two-Spirit young people and their families in Colorado. And then we've also got White Bison, which is an American Indian / Alaskan Native nonprofit organization that offers sobriety, recovery, addiction prevention, wellness, well-briety, and learning resources for their community. And this is a resource that you can use whether you're Native or not. They provide to both people. And then Ignacio Out and Equal Alliance is also in Colorado as well. And they support and empower LGBTQ plus and Two-Spirit community members and their families in the Southwest.
Awesome. It sounds like we have quite a few resources available to us. We just need to be able to find them. I will be including a lot of these links on the PFLAG Broomfield website. I'll be putting it in the comments for everywhere that we post this video. Can you let me know what's the easiest way to get to all of these resources? Where can we find these resources? Tracy?
Yeah, so all the phone numbers and websites, and honestly, a lot of the addresses and any information that you're looking for is located, and you can find it on www.broomfield.org/MH resources for mental health resources, or you can go to broomfield.org/mental health and you can access the resources link by clicking there. For LGBTQ plus resources, we do have some of the local and national information listed on our website that Anne just reviewed. All of these have their own great websites and you can get a lot of information for individuals, but Envision U is really our expert as a mental and behavioral health organization for this population. So I'm going to turn it over to Donovan to share a little bit more.
Yeah, absolutely. I don't know about experts, but we do love this work and we're incredibly passionate about it. So y'all can check out our website, Envision U's website at envision-u.org. Also, you can follow us on Instagram at EnvisionUCO. Some other really great resources that we work with and that we encourage folks to check out include Out Boulder, Queer Asterisk, and again, I'll name the Trevor Project because they do incredible work, incredible research, specifically around how we can support LGBTQ plus youth in crisis and just in general.
Excellent. So we're gonna go to Ben now. What support can your organizations provide?
Yeah, thank you. My name is Ben, and I use he, him pronouns, and I am the Youth Engagement Manager at Rise Above Colorado. And some of the supports that we are able to offer from our team really fall into three different buckets, primarily. The first one that I want to mention is our positive community norms campaign that we have going at the moment right now. It's called Fill Your World with Good, and it's something that is accessible to all youth across the state. It's easily found on all of the social media platforms at Rise Above CO, or just using the hashtag #IRiseAbove. And this campaign, it focuses on ways that teens across the state are making positive choices and impacts within their own lives and their own communities, ways that they're filling their own world with good. And we actually just ended a run of prize giveaways to youth that participated within the campaign, and we'll be doing that again at the beginning of July. So any youth across the state that are interested in engaging with us in that space can check that out on social, as well as our website, iriseaboveco.org, where they can also find a series of other resources including some information around substances just in general, and then ways that our teen council have identified ways that they can rise above just the stresses of life. And there are some various pages at that website that would be great to check out. The next thing that I want to mention is our sort of the core to the work that we do at Rise Above, which is our Teen Action Council. And this is a council of about 25 youth from across the state that represent the diversity, not just in the locations that they're coming from, but also racial diversity, economic diversity, identity diversity, etc. And this is a group of teens that are passionate about the work that we do and about making a positive impact in their own communities as well as throughout the state. And they work in partnership with each other as well as other folks that are on this call right now to make sure that impact is felt throughout the parts of the state and within the communities that maybe need it the most. And then the last thing that I want to mention is actually sort of a new opportunity. It's called the Teen Community Ambassadors, which is sort of the next ring out, sort of between the campaign and the Teen Action Council is this group of youth that maybe don't have the time to dedicate to the council in full commitment, but they want to do things intentionally within their own community to make a positive impact. And if anyone's interested in that, they can reach out to us through our website, or Sasha would be a good person to get in touch with as well, and she can toss those inquiries to me as well. But it's basically a self-paced form of being able to make an impact in your own community that doesn't involve quite the time commitment that the Teen Action Council does. So those are the main ways that we are engaging with youth across the state to help make that impact.
Thank you so much, Ben. So we're here, we're talking, we're sharing our resources. Outside of this, for other organizations that aren't here with us today who are wondering, how do we support one another? Hayden, do you want to start?
Yes, absolutely. So I think one important thing to note is that we have this really, really good network of mental health resources, but they're not always LGBTQ plus affirming or LGBTQ plus youth affirming. And so one thing that providers within organizations can do is continuing education. I know that Envision U offers a provider training program, and It has been vetted through the community, and it's fantastic. In this way, we can enhance resources, the resources that we just mentioned above, and make sure that everybody in our community is supported to the fullest extent possible.
And if somebody is interested in that education, they just reach out to Envision You, right?
Absolutely. We have all the information on our website, envision-u.org.
Fantastic. Thank you, Hayden. Muted myself. All right. So as we wrap up, can anybody tell me what is one thing that you would like our listeners to do tomorrow to support mental and behavioral health in our community?
I'll hop back in again. At Envision U, I support a public awareness campaign called How to Have the Talk. And the goal of this public awareness campaign is to encourage everybody to talk about mental health with their loved ones. We know that mental health does not get better if it gets shoved under the rug and we ignore it. So I encourage everybody to go talk to their loved ones about mental health. If you need support, if you need resources around that, go to howtohavethetalk.org, and there's a dash in between each of those words, or you can just go to envision-u.org to find our How to Have the Talk landing page. There you'll have conversation starters, resources to direct a loved one to if they need more support. It's a really great one-stop shop for mental health resources. So yeah, go talk to your loved ones about mental health.
I love that that's the answer. Broomfield has actually been doing Let's Talk About It and releasing a video series with people telling their stories and talking about stuff that they're at risk regarding suicide, addiction, depression. It's been really compelling. And I love that we're kind of at this stage, not just within our own community, but within the broader community, that we need to talk about these things because that's the only way that we can really fully combat it. So thank you for that. All right, I think that is it. I want to thank you all again so much for taking time out of your day to be here with us, to share all of this information. If anybody listening is interested in anything we've talked about, you can shoot me an email, sasha@pflagbroomfield.org, and I can point you in the right direction. And I will include all of these links and resources in the comments and on our webpage. And thank you. Just thank you so much for being here. Have a great day, everybody.
Thanks so much, Sasha.